or whatever. So he's found a spot that does it just for him and some select few, and that's that. So.
And the great thing about him is it's the basics.
It's
and the prices are reasonable. They were like $5-6.
When we talked about this, I said, you get a lot of these food trucks that come in and they're like got the craziness, and they're like $10, $11, and there's some great food. No question, there's some great food trucks. But G.I. Joe has got the basic food truck with the brats and the hamburgers,
and a veggie burgers,
and the sides are just like your basic, your coleslaws. And he does it well, and they're nicely priced, and that's
exactly.
Yeah,
and you get to support a veteran.
Yeah, nice guy,
good stuff,
super nice guy.
Yeah.
So let's get into some talk. We're talking a little soccer here, and then we're going to talk a little about podcasting. We're going to talk about Meth Gators.
Meth Gators, yes.
And we're talking about a Seagull.
Seagulls.
Yes, Seagulls.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little soccer right now about an incident that happened at the Austin Villa game.
Yes.
Which we didn't talk about in this podcast because it was a friendly and it really didn't really matter.
Yeah, we didn't pay attention to it.
And they had a problem with the broadcast anyways.
Yes.
So there is a security guard there who we've had, I think the supporters group has had some issues with a little bit. Yeah. Jen,
specifically True North Elite.
Yeah, Jen, who's been on the podcast before, she's had some issues with this guy.
Yeah, she was threatened to be kicked out.
And
I think we may have actually mentioned this.
We probably did. So just to preface this, the security company that works at Allianz Field is not part of United. They are
right. Yeah.
They are contracted out. So the United contracted out, and they're their own entity.
Is it West Security?
It could be.
I can't remember the name.
So there was a little video going on Twitter about Austin Villa, the manager. It's Smith. Is it? I don't remember who it is. So there's a couple of fans who were sitting in near the entrance.
Yep.
They'd taken their Austin Villa shirts off to get him to sign it. The security guard, this guy, came over and said, "Put your shirts back on." He got pissed off. Well, then the manager of Austin Villa came over, and they took their shirts back off again to have him sign their shirts.
Yep.
And the video shows that he signed one shirt, he went to the guy next to him, and as soon as he went to the guy next to him, the security guard came over and ripped the shirt out of the hands of the Austin Villa manager.
Yeah.
And the Austin Villa manager was like, what the F was going on here?
Yeah.
Whatever. Come to find out later on that because of this transaction that occurred, the guy was able to get his shirt signed by the manager and some other players and things like that.
Minnesota United did very well of just giving some free food, beverages, I think even some merchandise stuff.
But it brings up the fact that you have a security guard who obviously is taking his job way too seriously.
Way too seriously.
And doesn't know anything about soccer.
And
obviously.
Yeah, and it gives a bad name to Minnesota United.
It does.
When they have no control over it.
Even though there's a contracted worker, it gets a bad name because this guy is working at Allianz Field.
Exactly, yeah.
You know? And I don't know what his... Again, we don't know his side of the story. We don't know what he's dealt with before. We don't know if he's been a security guard at other places where he's had to be a little more aggressive.
Right.
But what does that say for what United have told the security guards about? Is there a process? What happens?
Right.
Yeah.
And I was in the Wonderwall when I believe it was the first time that there were issues, and I got to witness all of it go down, and it did kind of seem like it was a power trip issue.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. They need to. The team needs to do something about it. I know they addressed it with fans that were harmed, quote unquote harmed. And we don't want to beat a dead horse if they're doing something about it. But it's still, I think it's a black eye for the team.
It is, especially when you have a friendly against a team from England.
Yeah.
I mean, my deal is this. It should never happen. You should have, the security guard should have had a little of knowledge and said, well, the guy was wearing the shirt. He's going to take it off to get a signature. He's going to put it right back on. He's not being, and the thing was, it's after the game is over.
Right, it had no bearing on anything.
So if he took his shirt off after the game was over, who gives a shit? Oh, by the way, Let's just make this comment here. We have a dog barking in the background, which happens because this is a dog-friendly. 10K is dog-friendly.
Yes.
So, dog barking.
So once again, we have
dogs barking.
Yeah.
So, to finalize this, it's a black eye for United.
I think it is. Yeah.
And I understand why they can't address it at this point because it's a contracted worker. But
and I think there are privacy issues that you could argue too. Yeah.
But the next game. When is the next home game?
So the next game would be this weekend.
Okay. So it'll be interesting to see if we see that guy, that same security guard, in the same location.
Of course, none of us will see it.
Well, yeah. Well, okay. My bad. We can't see it because I'm turning 40 on July 31st. My wife is throwing a party for me in my house on the 27th. That is a home game. Sterling has sold his tickets off because he's coming to a party. Thank you, Sterling. So we won't see it, but we could actually talk to some people there.
And I would like to point out that my wife and I are celebrating our 14th anniversary on the 25th.
Oh, nice.
And, of course, when would you probably go out to celebrate?
Saturday.
The weekend.
Saturday.
After.
Well, then go on Friday.
And, of course, we're at your party.
We'll go Friday.
I mean, come on.
We'll go Friday.
I know.
Do you want me to throw a little thing
I
for
have
you
no
on my
logic
party?
in my argument. I'm just
You want me to throw a little party? We'll have a duel. My
right.
40th, your 14th. That's fine. It's fine.
Sorry.
Don't make me feel like an ass. Come on. But we have some peeps. Jen will be there. We have some other peeps who will be there. We could totally ask them if that guy was still there.
Right, yeah.
I'll be interested to see if they've moved him somewhere else, maybe.
Well, where? I mean, what are they going to move him to?
Another section?
I mean, the way he's treated fans, you don't even want to put him on the gates.
Well, again...
I mean, I can't imagine him being on a gate and me walking through with my pins on my coat.
Oh, I'd be like,
good God, just lock me up and get it over with.
Yeah. Well, the guy committed something that shouldn't have happened, but whatever. We'll see what next time happens. I do want to talk right now about an article in the New York Times that came out, and Aaron Gleeman of Gleeman the Geek brought it up on Twitter, and I actually read it after he brought it up, saying that podcasting had hit a bubble, and the bubble had burst. And the crazy thing about this article was they could have done a great job with the article, and they could have said it burst, and this is why it's bursting, and whatever.
Sure.
And their big thing was there was too many podcasts now. The problem is they tried to make it seem like there's too many podcasts by interviewing a guy who had started a podcast about advice podcasts, and then talked to him, and the guy had done the podcast for 6 weeks, and he wasn't making any money, so they quit doing the podcast. Now, Gleeman made a good point. He said, myself and the Geek have been doing this podcast for years. We just started making money on this thing, a little bit of money, not enough to quit our day jobs.
Right.
But we do this because we love it. And I want to bring this up because myself, David, and Dave, we don't expect to make money on this podcast. We actually put more money in this podcast than we make out of it because we have some small sponsors and some other stuff. Yeah. We do this because we love podcasting and we love craft breweries. That's the only reason we do this.
Right.
And so I don't like that article. It makes it seem like people are trying to get into it to make money, and it's not about making money.
Well, there are a few things that I don't like about that article. And I have to preface this by saying I didn't read the article. I'm going completely by what you said. But, first, you don't start a podcast to make money.
No.
Unless you're a celebrity.
Exactly right.
If you're a Adam Carolla type.
Adam Carolla makes money.
Who, was known. Mm-hmm. I mean, known well beyond the word known. Mm-hmm. Before he did it.
Yeah.
If you're a musician or a movie star who does a podcast, you get to gain traction by your name.
That's right.
If you're a media person and you're doing a local podcast, you gain traction by your name.
That's right.
We don't know a ton about this guy that started this, but now for us, the three of us are literally nobody, right? No one knows us. now that's changing.
A couple fans know us. Yeah.
And we decided to start a podcast. Now, what is it? We've been in this business now for 1 year and 4 months.
Yep.
Almost exactly, probably. And we're going to maybe, I think, receive a payment of $12
Exactly.
in the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
So it took us 16 months to make $12.
And how much money did we put in this podcast?
More than $12.
More than $12. We pay for our own beers. Most
Most of the
places. Yeah. Some breweries give us some free beers, which is fine. We paid for our own business cards. We paid for our own
Equipment,
graphics, all that type of
gas
stuff.
to drive to these
Exactly
breweries.
right, yeah.
I mean, I think it's insane to do a podcast for 6 months. I mean, unless the dude was Mark Wahlberg.
No, it was 6 weeks.
Well, sorry, yes.
6 weeks.
So, I mean, unless the dude was like Mark Wahlberg and he started a podcast advice. What is that?
But realize the fact that if you're going to do a podcast to try to make money and you do it for 6 weeks, you better start off pretty good. If you don't have a name, you better market yourself, advertise, spend money before that. You have to spend money to make money.
Right.
You can't just put up product and think that you're going to make money.
Yeah, it's complete insanity.
It's stupid. Do you think musicians start being musicians and think, I'm not going to spend any money, I'm going to make money? Nobody has.
Right.
You spend money on your setups, you spend money on marketing, you spend money on all that stuff.
Yeah.
To get to where you're at.
And you think about bands will spend 40, 50 grand to get their record recorded.
That's right.
And people barely know. I mean, they've probably been touring locally and maybe regionally. Yeah. But people don't really know them that much.
No.
So they're going to spend, and well, I should say they, by them I mean their label, will end up spending, tens of thousands of dollars before they even are known. And it's a bet. It's a gamble.
It's a gamble. And again, like our podcast here, we're going to probably spend some money on a new logo, a secondary logo for ourselves.
Yes.
That's going to cost us money. We might at some point spend money on doing an electronic billboard.
Right.
Which is going to cost us a little bit of money. We're not doing that because we want to make money. We're doing it because we want more listeners to listen to what we're saying.
Yeah.
And we enjoy that.
Right.
I enjoy the fact that we come to some of these places and we have some people who show up.
Right.
Or our deal with dual citizen and True North. I enjoy that. I enjoy people listening to this. It's not about making money.
I mean, it'd be awesome to make money, but
of course it would. But who cares? We're in a niche. We're in a niche market.
Right. And so that brings me to the next point. It's like, how can you say that podcasts have reached a bubble? Okay, we're not talking even, let's stay in our niche. We're not talking about craft beer.
No.
Where eventually there are 2,000 breweries that make the same thing. Mm-hmm. We're talking about ideas.
That's right.
We're talking about, even the same idea has different perspectives based on the person who's saying them. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult to create a bubble in terms of podcasts, because you could have 6 murder mystery podcasts, but you have 8, 9, 10 different people doing those podcasts. So you're going to get 8, 9, 10 different perspectives.
That's right.
It's just not the same thing. I mean, we look in our market, there are, probably 4 podcasts that do Minnesota United stuff. And
we all do differently.
We're all different.
We're all different people.
Yeah.
You have the Daves I know.
Yeah.
They do a different total podcast than we do. We're again, Daves I know do a weekly podcast about United. We do it every other week podcast about United, but we do it at breweries. We do it a little different.
Yeah. And you have Wes who does the 55-1 podcast.
Exactly
he does it differently. You got Jeff who does he has his Patreon site. Yep. He does things differently. The reality is everything's very subjective. Mm-hmm. And when you add multiple people into it, you get multiple ideas. You get multiple variations. I think it would be very difficult to have a bubble for podcasts.
No,
it's like trying to say, like trying to say novel